Welcome to this week's episode of Pax Americana. I am here with Olga Lautman, and we are so happy to have you here. To our viewers in the United States, thank you for being here. To our viewers around the world, stay strong. This country will come back eventually, we promise, hopefully. Olga, I had a bit of a late night last night where I really got into it with Scott Jennings on CNN, who interestingly, I think he called me irrelevant and said he doesn't know what I do for a living, which is interesting because what I do for a living is elect Democrats to defeat people like him. But he was a little upset with me. And we don't have to belabor it other than to say that I am old enough to remember when he thought Donald Trump was a horrible human being after January 6th, when it looks like Trump was on his way out. But now that Trump is back, he fillets him nightly on CNN. That's what he does for a living. So let's move on to what is going on with the world, which is much more important than some irrelevant bozo from Kentucky.
I'm
Donald,
telling you,
yes,
I cannot wait for all these propagandists and these vile people just to be buried in the dustbins of history.
they will be.
I can't wait till we get to a point where actually CNN has normal people, pundits, even if they are Republican, but that they don't spew garbage, propaganda, vile, hatred, all day long. I can't wait to have normal politics back one day.
Yeah, well, I don't know if CNN will be surviving by that point, but largely because people like Scott Jennings make people turn off the TV when he's on. But anyway, let's go to what is happening tomorrow in Alaska, not Russia, despite what Donald Trump wants you to believe. He thinks that he's having a meeting with the Russian president in Russia. In fact, Alaska, which is where he's having this meeting, has not been part of Russia since 1867, but people forgot to mention that to Donald Trump, I guess, in his briefings. Nevertheless, he is meeting him at an Air Force base. Putin had to get a special waiver to enter the United States since he's under international sanctions, thanks to our president. Apparently, that doesn't matter. He is going to be meeting Trump in Alaska to carve up Ukraine, regardless and irrespective of what we are being told right now. That is on the agenda, I believe. I think you probably believe that as well. And if not that, it will be the precursor to that. And in the meantime, because Trump is so desperately thirsty for a end to this war, because he promised his base that he would end it before he even got into office, he is going to give away everything to Putin that he wants. Natural, rare earth minerals, lifting sanctions, welcoming him back into the community of nations, another slap at NATO, probably cutting off weapons of some sort from Ukraine. I mean, there's a whole panoply of things that Trump is now negotiating against himself on. And Putin, as we all know, doesn't actually want to end this war because he can't, because if he ended this war, he'd be dead. So what do you make of all that, Olga?
Well, just to dial back a drop, because this is exactly what Trump wants to do. Everything you just listed and more is exactly what Trump wants to give Putin. If he could, he'd give him an office in the White House. And
He already has one. It's called the Oval Office, but
yeah,
yeah,
but he'd officially
right,
put,
right.
President of United States, or maybe a Trumpistan Oblast, and and then put him in. But we've discussed this, since we started this Pax Americana show. And honestly, I don't see much coming out of it because, again, Trump may ignore the Constitution in the US. He may do whatever he wants. And I did see people worried that he might give Alaska away. I actually went into this, and apparently you need two-thirds Senate. The process is so complicated to give territory
Well, it's
away.
not, let me just say this. It's not even relevant because even if it were easy for him to do, don't forget it's a Republican state with two
Yeah.
Republican senators, which means two extra votes that he has, and it's got electoral votes for Republicans. If it were Hawaii, he might be a little concerned, but because it's a Republican state, even though Lisa Murkowski, not his favorite person, represents it, it's okay.
Yeah, she still votes,
Yeah.
when she needs to vote, she
Yeah.
votes with them. But basically, everything you said is correct, but Trump could try to rewrite the Constitution in US. He can ignore the Constitution, ignore the laws, and if the American people want to do that, tolerate it, this is up to them. When it comes to Ukraine, they have, their constitution. Zelensky does not have power to cede any land. This again requires a whole process, just like here, where you would need Rada, you would need a certain percentage of votes in Rada, and this would never happen because in Ukraine, the civil society runs the country. So Trump can give away Kiev and the presidential palace and everything that he wants. It is irrelevant. It is like you remember when the Soviet Union, the ruble was worth toilet paper to wipe
Yeah,
your
but they
ass.
said it was worth more than the dollar, yeah.
This is exactly what it is. Whatever comes out of this, you still have Ukraine, where, Trump said, well, Zelensky started not started, but Zelensky, if he can have the power to fight off a genocidal invasion, he can have the power to see territory. He does not. Zelensky, if he did this, and Zelensky got a taste of it, and he wouldn't do it. But if Zelensky tried to do this, you would see the whole country out in the streets and Zelensky would be tied to a drone and shipped to Russia and landed right in Moscow. And he wouldn't. And Zelensky got a taste of this because he attempted to shut down the anti-corruption agencies and in under drones, under missiles, the whole country poured out for 2 days to the point that the pressure turned up so much immediately this was reversed. So Trump can give away whatever he wants. He can't. And then we have to bring in the European aspect. Europe, and we've discussed it, every defense agency, every intelligence agency in Europe is warning that Russia is preparing an attack on a NATO country. So Europe has its own stake. No amount of tariff threats or any threats that Trump can throw at Europe, will they, say, you know what, we'll listen to Trump and then we'll deal with when Russian drones start bombing our cities. So Europe has a huge stake into this and a huge stake in, calculating the future of what happens. And the last thing I'll say is with NATO, yes, Trump has done damage to NATO. He could really completely dismantle NATO by just, without dismantling it through Congress, but basically throwing enough into it to grind it to a halt. But Europe has been preparing and they're putting together a European defense force. So basically, it would be like after the collapse of the Soviet Union, where you had the KGB fall and they switched letters to FSB. So here you would have Europe, the same countries committed to defense of Europe, plus Canada. There's talk South Korea would potentially be part of this. They have the infrastructure in place. So if NATO, happens to no longer exist, they can put this European force together, use the same infrastructure minus the United States, which we will be the biggest losers. So this whole thing, I mean, for me, my biggest not even worry. My disgust is that Trump is bringing a war criminal to a United States military base, to a United States soil. I mean, this is such a slap in the face to the same military people who are fending off Russian incursions towards the United States. And this is the same military base that he's hosting this terrorist with his entourage, who are, by the way, on the way to Alaska. And funny enough, just to throw some humor into this, they're using the cocaine plane, which
Yes. Yeah.
a plane that was involved in drug trafficking and cocaine from Argentina. This is the plane that is flying Lavrov, Belousov, and whatever who else is coming. I don't even know. Let me see.
Yeah, and what I find so fascinating about all this is that this is all coming in a week. And by the way, the media is like wrote a story about this and then everybody kind of moved on. This is coming in a week where it was exposed that the Russians hacked into our court database, into our federal court, or not just our, into the PACER, which is the courts system
Yep.
that
Mhm.
a lot of which is firewalled because a lot of stuff, like including settlements and other things, cooperating witnesses, things like that, are behind a paywall.
Informants,
Uh,
informants.
Informants, things like that. So hypothetically, if you were an informant on the Russian mob, um, and you gave up somebody who launders a lot of money for the Russian government, the Russians now know who you are, and they know where you are, and they know what you said, and they know what you did. Hypothetically, if you were cooperating with the FBI on a counterintelligence operation and that resulted in the indictment of somebody, they know who you are. This is a major, major national security breach,
Mhm.
uh, indescribably so. The fact that the media is not all over this 24/7 is a crime in and of itself. And to the extent that I said that CNN is not going to be around much longer, it is because mainstream media does not focus on stories that are important like this over and over and over and over again. They just don't.
This is
Uh,
the failure of cable news because I have to say, I do the Trump tyranny tracker,
mhm.
and I was expecting, a shift in media coverage and just a slant of media. And on print, there hasn't been. On cable news, they're occupied with nonsense and having people like Scott Jennings whitewash everything instead of
Yeah.
focus on actual news
News. I mean,
that are a
I'm
danger to our national
I'm gonna
security.
be honest. I was on Abby Phillips' show last night. It is, I think, the top rated or one of the top rated shows on that network. I should not have been on that show. In fact, that show should not have happened this week. What should have taken place this week is repeated exposure of what happened to this hack. What should have happened this week is an explanation of what exactly Putin and Trump are each up to at this summit. And instead of having Democrats battle Republicans like that clown in Kentucky, and Jillian Michaels, who was also on with me, who the last time I checked was a wellness expert and does not know the first goddamn
That's
thing.
where I tuned
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
I happened to
So,
turn the TV and see her having a meltdown.
but
Well,
but that's
why
but
are white people accused of slavery?
yeah, I
What?
mean, like
Like,
instead of litigating why that white people were not apparently responsible for slavery, which is what I'm not joking, I was forced to do yesterday on the show because that's what she was saying, and instead of having to litigate the fact that yes, indeed, white people enslaved black people, like I didn't realize this was up for debate. We should have been talking about, or we should not have been talking about this. I'm sorry. They should have been talking about, i.e., they're journalists from around the world because they do have a stable of incredible journalists all over the world, including
yes,
embedded in Moscow, including embedded in Kiev, including embedded at the war front, including embedded anywhere in the courts, which are now infiltrated by the Russians, everywhere. That's what they should have been focusing on. But they weren't. And so I just want to stress again how absolutely enraging it is. And I'm so grateful to all of you who join us every week, but we should not be the ones talking about this. We get hundreds of viewers a week. They get millions, or
hundreds
they
of
should.
thousands
Hundreds of thousands. They don't get millions,
per
sorry. But
show, per show.
yeah, per show. I mean, this should be daily conversation about what is happening. And then people wonder why we all just shrug and watch our democracy go down the drain. And it's because this brings ratings. Me calling Scott Jennings thirsty last night and him calling me irrelevant last night, that rates because that's a cat fight, right? Julian Michaels saying something stupid like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why white people are always blamed for slavery. Slavery's existed for thousands of years. Okay, in this country, it was white people enslaving black people. I don't understand how that's even controversial right now."
To paint herself a victim.
Yeah,
I
paint herself
just
a
sat
victim.
there. I was
And
like,
and
wow.
and because that brings ratings, because now everybody's writing about crazy Jillian Michaels defending slavery and Julie Roginsky having to come in there and say, "No, that's not accurate." You know, that's how this country gets stupid. This is like the idiocy of this country is at the hands, unfortunately, and I participate in this, and I'm working myself up here to the point where I probably should just stop doing this stuff. But it is stupid. We're making people stupid. Meanwhile, the smart people out there, like Vladimir Putin, are flying under the radar in this country, subverting our court system. Probably, God knows how many people are going to be falling out of windows as a result of this hack, how many people are going to be killed as a result of this hack. And he is being welcomed, as you said, Olga, on American soil at a military base in this country.
A war
In
criminal.
a
A war.
war
I
criminal.
mean,
A war
it is
criminal who
a
has
duty.
kidnapped children from their parents and has sent them to re-education camps. A war criminal who is kidnapping prisoners of war Ukrainians and making them fight against their own brothers and husbands and wives and sisters. That's who we're
A war
welcoming to this
criminal
country.
who is having Ukrainians held prisoners of war castrated so they can produce future generations of children. A war criminal where there is a website now where you can go catalog shopping like you're shopping in fucking Walmart for Ukrainian children that has their eye color, their age, this. I mean, this is
Like
digital
a sperm
human
like a
trafficking.
sperm donor, like a sperm donor. Like I'm picking a sperm donor out, but instead I'm picking a live child out.
Yeah. And this is what is happening. And I mean, technically, our military should arrest the criminal. He has an arrest warrant out for him. And he's being welcomed to an Hayco military base. And this is the infuriating part. What comes out with Trump's promises to Putin, he and Putin alone can't decide this because you still have Ukrainians and Europeans. So whatever, Trump can give him everything. He can say, here are the keys to the presidential
Well,
palace in
no,
Kiev.
there is listen, here's what he can do. Here's what he can do.
Withhold weapons.
He can withhold weapons. He can, because as I keep saying, he's very thirsty for a deal. Very thirsty for a deal. He can get him, and apparently this is now on the table, I read somewhere, that he can get the Russians to have access to our rare earth minerals in the Arctic, in Alaska. He can do that. He can certainly
Yes.
put the final nail in the NATO coffin, which would nothing would please Vladimir Putin more. He can withhold funds for Ukraine. He can prevent, like, if he does any of that, all the money that is being held in European banks by the Russians need to be given to Ukraine immediately. There is billions of dollars of wealth that is sitting there and absolutely given to the Ukrainians for reconstruction.
And that's what I mean. He can withhold weapons, intelligence sharing. He's done this. Europeans are prepared for this. Ukraine is prepared for this. They understand not only that can he withhold and has withheld weapons and intel sharing, that he can provide Russia the logistics and
Yeah.
intel on Ukrainian positions to help them break through. But this is something that they are prepared for, and Europe is prepared, even though publicly, they sit and act as if everything is normal with Trump. They understand that Trump, at a flip of a switch, can, betray everyone. So, I mean, and they have to make the preparations. Ukraine has increased their weapons production, particularly drones and now missiles. And Europe has been working on increasing their productions in order to supply Ukraine and meet the shortfalls. So we'll see. Of course, he can do damage, but bottom line is he cannot cede any territory. He cannot cause a ceasefire because that's up to Russia. They won't do this. And he can't, how you call it, basically force a Ukrainian surrender immediately because Ukrainians will rather anything than live under Russian occupation because one, they've had that experiment under the Soviet Union, and two, they don't have to go that far back because anyone in Donbass or Crimea, Kherson, Zaporizhia, any of these cities, they understand what it happens to people living under Russian occupation. So they don't even have to go that far back to the Soviet Union. So they will continue fighting, you know, for their future. Problem is that you're just going to have, as since Trump has come in, more civilian casualties. And if you look at the charts from the day Trump stepped into office in January, I mean, the murder of Ukrainians, the attacks by Russia on Ukrainians have tripled or quadrupled. So, I mean, Russia is getting this free reign. This summit is another thing to kick it down the road because obviously it was announced literally on the day that Trump was, oh, I'm getting tough. This is finally it. That day that it was finally it, and, if Russia didn't stop, then there would, hey, call it, be repercussions. That day is when he announced the summit. And what did that do? Buy another 2 weeks for Russia. And then tomorrow he'll buy another 2 weeks for Russia and continue providing cover for Russia to continue its genocidal war and to continue killing civilians.
Yeah, and I think the challenge here is what you're talking about is you're talking about a former KGB agent and a complete and utter moron, which is what Donald Trump is. He's shrewd like a fox, but he's not particularly sophisticated. And what's going to end up happening is Putin's going to go there tomorrow and Putin's going to say, I want to end this war. All I'm asking for is for the Russian-speaking people of what used to be Russia anyway to come. Historically, there's never been a Ukraine to come back home. You understand this, Mr. President? I mean, the same way that he'll come up with something, the same way that parts of Mexico should be part of the United States. Probably put that stupid idea in his head.
Yeah.
The same way that Greenland should belong to you, the same way that Canada should belong to you. I'm not asking for all of it. I'm just asking for this. And, uh, I would end this war tomorrow if I were just giving back what's mine. And of course, Trump has no sense of history, no sense of geography, no sense of anything. I guarantee you he has not studied a map before this. I understand he's not, the briefing on this must be 20 minutes tops, probably pictures, and those pictures don't include maps. And the difficulty is that Trump is going to leave there and say Vladimir Putin is eminently reasonable. And the obstacle to this is Zelensky. And he's
Yeah.
going to humiliate Zelensky again, the same way he did again. And Olga, I keep going back to this. He gave Russia 50 days. And then he started talking tough and said, I'm not even going to give them 50 days to end this war. I'm going to give them less than that, to whatever number he gave. And then you had Dmitry Medvedev, who's the former president of Russia, but is now basically Putin's professional troll, saying something along the lines of, publicly, I think on social media, do you think the Israelis are the only ones who know everything that Trump did with Jeffrey Epstein? We have all that information too. And again, something that mainstream media did not connect. The minute he said that, all of a sudden, Trump was back to currying favor with Putin. The summit was back on the table. Everything was back to normal, status quo.
And not to mention the real estate guy, a real estate
And the real
guy
estate guy
who flies there.
oh yeah,
And
who runs a real estate guy who, again, I mean, this isn't even the thing about this is it's not even like you and I have any kind of top secret information here. It's just connecting dots. It is right here before you, mainstream media, connect them yourselves. Steve Witkoff, the real estate guy who went to meet with with Putin in the Kremlin again last week or 10 days ago. His son runs World Financial Lenders, which is the crypto arm that the Trump family has a majority stake in, who
Yep.
God knows who is putting money into, but I guarantee you there's a lot of Russian money going in there.
Oh, yeah.
And so this guy goes to the Kremlin, gets his VIG from whoever, and all of a sudden, the 50 days are up, the 20 days are up, the tough talk is up. And now Trump to save face, oh, if Putin doesn't do this, doesn't agree to a ceasefire, there's going to be serious repercussions. Give me a break. You know who knows that Trump tacos out more than anybody else? Vladimir Putin. He's laughing at him. And Trump doesn't have to take our word for it. Turn on Russian TV. Does nobody in Trump's orbit speak Russian? Does nobody brief him on what Russian mouthpieces are saying. Imagine if Fox News on a daily basis made fun of Vladimir Putin. Do you think that Putin wouldn't be aware of it?
Of course he would.
This is Fox News on steroids because it's at least Fox News pretends to be independent. They're not, but they pretend to be. These people aren't even pretending to be independent. They're state owned.
Yeah, absolutely. They get their talking points in the morning, literally delivered of what they need to focus on. And I keep saying this is again the failure of media because they actually, and from the most serious anchors who actually call Steve Witkoff on a special envoy. He is a shady real estate guy. And the fact that a shady real estate guy being normalized as an envoy is the same thing what they're doing now with normalizing the fact that we have military spreading through the country on American streets. I
Yeah.
mean, they are sitting and normalizing it to people. I know you have to go, so we need to.
I do need to go. I apologize. I actually have to go to MSNBC and do a show. Hopefully, I will not be fighting with Scott Jennings, which I will not be because
No.
it's MSNBC. Anyway, it was so great to have everybody here for a very abbreviated version of Pax Americana. We will see you all on Monday on Substack, where we'll have a new chapter in our series, Active Measures. This one the whole series is about how the United States presidential election in 2016 was infiltrated by Russia to help Donald Trump get elected. But we will also see you back here on Tuesday
Yep.
at 12:30 Eastern to talk about that. And then we will see you back here next Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern for another episode of Pax Americana. Promise we'll make it longer next week. But in the meantime, everybody have a great weekend. Talk to you all soon. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.